Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
A four-time Emmy Award winning and was the co-host of the fourth hour of Today with Hoda. And they did that for years, 11 years. And then Kathie Lee, who is so brave and a chance taker, said, great, loved it, had enough, I'm off to do other things. And that was a sad day for people who love to watch them and love to watch television. But we all knew Kathie from even before that when she was co-host with Live with Regis, and that was 15 years. She's got her own star on the Hollywood Hall of Fame, and she's just got all kinds of fabulous things, including a brand new book called The God of the Way. So, Kathie, you're unreal. You know, you tell us you're moving out of the city and you're so much a part of New York. How did you pick where your next home was going to be? Was it the music? What brought you to Nashville?
Once Frank had passed and once my children had moved to California to pursue their own careers, I knew I had to make a huge change. There was a line in the movie that I wrote for my friend Craig Ferguson, the movie called Then Came You, the character Annabelle has her husband's ashes in her hand, and she basically says, "I love you, Fred, but I got to make new memories, or the old ones are going to kill me, and I'm not ready to die, not yet." And I had always thought that I would go back to my beloved California where I had lived for years. I spent 40 years thinking one day I'm going to spread my kids can spread my ashes in Santa Barbara, because I thought it was one of the most beautiful places in the world. Well, it was. And even that has, gotten to the point where I just said, you know what? I'm not going back there. I'm not going to deal with that kind of an environment. I hate the taxes are insane. The quality of life has just disappeared. The politics are so ugly. I mean, I have friends across the whole political spectrum, but I've always been able to talk to them respectfully and lovingly. I never would ever think for a moment to cancel somebody because they think differently about something than I do. They're good people and I love them, but you can't talk to people anymore in these big cities. And it was getting to that point in New York, too, and it was so mean-spirited. And I just said, Lord, I don't want to live out the rest of my days this way. And while I had been doing that movie with Craig, I had been co-writing all the music with this brilliant writer in Nashville named Brett James. And so I spent a year coming down to Nashville and just writing and doing the videos and producing all the music. And I'd get on the plane on a Sunday afternoon. I think I've told you this, Joan. And I'd say, I don't want to go. Why am I so happy here? And this is not to put down New York. This is to put down what New York has become, the culture, not the people. There are wonderful, godly, good, moral, excellent people in New York. But anybody who says the culture has not changed has lost their minds. I'm sorry. I've lived there since 1982. You far longer than I have. If you're happy there, then God bless you. But I couldn't take it anymore. I said, I don't want to be mean, and I don't want to be anxious, and I don't want to live in fear, and I don't like I pay really high taxes. I don't want it to be filthy. I just said, this is just not the way I want to live my life. So I thought I bought a small place in Tennessee thinking, I'll keep one little foot, one little well-pedicured toe in Tennessee, and I'll go back and forth. And honestly, there's such a culture of kindness here, Joan, that it just seduced me. I was so happy here. People are nice, and they love God and they love their country, and they. But here's the difference: they don't tell you how to live. They don't tell you how you got to vote. They don't tell you how you got to worship. I went through 2 cycles of 2 election since I've moved here 4 years ago. I just bought my first home here 4 years ago. I bought a couple since then because I get bigger and bigger because I want to stay more. I want to entertain more. I want more. I have more friends and I want to have them over. And anyway, they'd say to me, nobody screamed you about who you're going to vote for. They'd say, you know what? After you vote, let's get together and have a drink and write a song. And I'd go, I'm not in Kansas anymore.
It's amazing.
I just, what is this where people just let you be who you authentically are? And then if you're a jerk, they'll let you know, but they let you be till then. And we've stopped doing that. When did that happen, Joan? But I can imagine you're as upset about it as I am. And it's not just New York. It's so many of the major cities that I used to love visiting. I won't even go to them anymore. I don't know who's paying taxes anymore in all these cities where people are leaving in the droves from them because, and you're certainly allowed to have whatever political opinion you want to have. But can we just be honest about some of the policies that don't make sense and are not working and they're hurting people? People are suffering that shouldn't have to.
Well, what's also interesting is that when you moved, you had always been a workaholic, but you now were working as much as ever, even more. And all the things you were doing that brought the Bible and the names that many of us had grown up with or heard, but a new reality came with you, with your music, with your stories, with the narrative. And it wasn't a new Kathie Lee, but it was a different direction at that moment.
Joan, you've known me for such a long time, and you've been such a faithful friend to me through the years. You know that has always been my desire. It was to bring truth to the forefront so people could see it maybe in a different light for the first time and maybe have a new understanding that would maybe guide them to some peace, some shalom in their life. And so people, when I left the show with Regis, said the same thing to me as when I left the show with Hoda. They go, how could you leave your dream job? And I'd go, well, you know what? You're just assuming it was my dream job. When I was growing up, there were no talk shows, for one thing, and there certainly weren't any female talk show hosts. I never dreamed of being a talk show host. I wanted to be in Disney movies. I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to write stories that entertain people. That was always my dream since I came out of my mother's womb. So finally, I'd gotten to the point where I didn't have to take care of so many people anymore. And I had this huge home in Connecticut that I adore, but I had a staff and I just thought, why am I still here? I could finally now move to this place in Connecticut, be surrounded by people who let me be who I am. They let me worship or not worship, go to church and not go to church, be an atheist or believe in miracles. They don't care. They just let you be. And they certainly don't tell you how to vote. And I just said, whatever time the Lord keeps me on this earth, I don't want to be fighting. I don't want to be arguing. I don't want to be defending. I just want to be sharing in a loving way what I've found to be true in my life. Because I've never tried to preach to people. And I'm certainly not an expert in biblical studies, but I study with the most renowned rabbis and Judeo-Christian teachers in the world. And what they teach me has transformed my life so much that I have to pass it along. I mean, it's almost like if you had the cure for cancer, would you keep it a secret? No decent person wouldn't, regardless of their politics. You'd share it with hurting, suffering people. I just feel like I have found the cure for the malignancy of the soul. And it's a God-formed vacuum in our hearts and in our lives that people spend their whole life trying to fill up with counterfeits. And it doesn't work. And it breaks my heart for people. It just does. I'm sitting here so exhausted and worn out. I just got off my umpteenth mountain in Israel because I just got home 2 days ago. I'm writing my next book, and then just beginning my next movies that I shoot there, because I want to tell the stories of the Bible in a way that nobody has ever told them before, and that's through oratorio and through narration and music with orchestras, and it's working, Joan. I'm so happy to say, along with this book, the new book, The God of the Way, that came in as a companion piece to this, my newest film, which is called The Way.
And so the book's called The God of the Way. And it's on that.
Oh, honey, thank you. It's all, I write with brilliant people. And I write almost all the lyrics, but I co-write the music with everyone. And in some cases, I don't. Sometimes I just write all the lyrics and somebody writes the music. Whatever serves our narrative. We try to, leave our egos at the door and say, what do we want to say and how do we want to say it? So these epic stories from the Bible, and I believe the Bible is not the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's one unbelievable story we should have never broken up into two sections, because it's confused people. Oh, the Old Testament's for the Jews and the New Testament's for the Christians. No, then nothing could be further from the truth. The story of Jesus is a Jewish story, and all of his original, believers and followers and disciples were all Jewish. It wasn't, the word Christian didn't show up till many, many years later, when during the apostolic period, when the word of the way, that's what the early followers of Jesus were called, followers of the way. And the Christian is a Greek word, not a Hebrew word, based on Christos, meaning Messiah in Greek. So, there's just so much, as you and I have talked many times, so much biblical illiteracy. And studying the way I study in the Holy Land with these brilliant scholars telling me what the Old Testament really says, what the Hebrew in it really says, and what the Greek in the New Testament really says. And the more I learn, the more I'm so convinced that the problem is that we've divided the Bible to the point that it's divided us. And I am a Jew. I was born to a Jewish father and a shiksa mom. Mm-hmm. And that was God's purpose too, so I would understand both worlds, so I could spend the rest of our lives trying to create a bridge between us, a bridge of understanding. And that's my life's work now. And I miss Hoda. I miss a lot of my friends. So many of our old crew at the Today Show have also, decided it's time to move on. And that's life. That's just the ebb and flow of life. But I do miss the people, but do I miss, what I used to do for a living? No, any more than I missed it with Regis. I just don't. This is what I was never meant to do long term, forever.
So, Kathie, if someone offered you, if someone came along and said, we miss you so much on television, and it's true, it's lots of replacements, but never the same, would you be tempted to go back? I'm wise enough to say I don't know what the future holds. I know who holds my future. So I'm open to whatever the Lord has for me. But honestly, the first thing I always say to everyone is, and I have been offered those things. I was on a plane going to Israel 2 months before I left the Today Show, and we'd announced that I was leaving, and I got a call in the airport from another network where I used to work, and they go, "Will you come back? Will you come back?" And it was hard for me to try to explain. You don't understand. I don't want to do this anymore with my time, and I don't want to do it in New York anymore. I want to get away from the Northeast and the culture there, not the people, and I need to make that clear. Just the culture of what it has become. And I said, I'm free now to be who I am where I'm moving to. And nothing can take that away from me. There's a saying I picked up, it came straight from the Lord about 6 years ago. It said, Kathie, the joy of my joy is non-negotiable. And I found again this joy in life, doing what I want to do, what I was born to do, with people who are like-minded and make me feel good about who I am.
you surround yourself with people who make you feel like you're stupid, or like you're not a good human being, or that they just judge you all the time. And Christians have been guilty of that for millennia. That's why our churches are empty in many parts of our world today, because we haven't been living the gospel of Jesus, telling people that he loves them. We've been judging people. That doesn't make people want to go to church. That doesn't want to make people change. People want to be happy. People want joy. People want peace in their life. And yet we become so dogmatic, whether we're on the far left or far right or, whatever. It's a club I don't want to belong to. So
Kathie,
I had to protect my soul when I moved down here. That's what I was doing.
Now, were the children upset? You're close to your son and your daughter, and you've got a new baby in the family. You're a grandma now. Were they upset when you moved to Nashville? Have they been tempted?
To move as well? My daughter moved here within a year. I was just with her all day yesterday. My daughter moved here with her husband, Cody, they both left California because of the same thing I'm describing has happened there. Then they thought they'd live out the rest of their lives in California too. It was the most beautiful place. I'm sorry, but show me anywhere in America is a more beautiful place to live year round than Southern California.
No, it's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. And they thought they were that was their life's choice too. Cass and Ben, her husband, moved here. They got married during COVID. Cody and Erica, they were both living in Santa Monica. Everybody lived in Santa Monica. They left and moved back to my house in Connecticut while they tried to figure out what to do, where they wanted to end up. They looked at property here and, really considered it. But it's far away from her home, which is in Nevada, from her mother. And then once they had their little boy, who is just, I'm Bubby, which you will understand. I'm a Yiddish grandma. I'm Bubby, and he's my Bubala. And I go home once a month now, just to even if it's just to hold him for 15 minutes. He's baby Frank. Yeah. And he's his grandfather all over again. He's his father all over again. He's got the beauty and the personality of his mom. I mean, it's everything they tell you being a grandmother should be. But I leave them alone. I've always left my children alone since they became adults.
And they've
I said,
done
you guys
their
need
thing.
me, call me. Yep. And I don't know where they're going to end up. This is just a temporary thing while they're trying to figure it out. But
But your daughter was very talented too. And is she still acting? And
yeah, well, things have just shriveled up. When that whole
COVID,
and when you're and a lot of the opportunities she had, and she was wanted by. She won a huge award. The last person who had won this award before COVID happened was Amber Heard for the most promising star of the future award. She won that. And the next year, her father died, and then right after that, COVID hit, and it's just all dried up. She still gets offers, but nothing she wants to do. So she's just concentrating on being a happy human being right now. She and her husband travel quite a bit, and they'd love to start a future as a family. And so, I think she's wise enough also to understand that, her joy is non-negotiable too. She doesn't need to be acting just to be acting. She wants to do good work.
Right. And
she's always said that. She said, Mom, it's about the writing. You've always told me, don't just take it to have a job. I go, my words come back to haunt me. But she's right. She says, I don't need to work, thank God. She said, but I want to work, but I want to do work that's meaningful and purposeful. So, I did my job. And so did Frank, raising two unbelievable human beings who know that they're blessed and have a purpose. And it's not what they can build for themselves, some monuments to their own ego or anything. No, they know that if they're blessed, they had a purpose, and that was to be a blessing to people who don't have the kind of opportunities that they've had. So that's the one thing I take a little bit of a bow about. Is that Frank and I, we taught them that God is the most important thing they'll ever have to understand in life, is that God is their dearest, closest friend. Make friends with God early in life. Teach your children that he will be there long after their parents are gone. Don't put your faith in anybody else, any organization, any government, anything. They're not going to be there for you ultimately. But God will. His promises are true, and he never changes. He is all good, all sovereign, a Jehovah Elohim, creator of all good and every perfect gift. So they are living
Kathie,
testimonies.
When the children were little, did they resist the message? Like so many kids, don't bother me, I have my own thing? Or
no, because I made it
responsive?
Fun. They didn't when they were little, because I would make up songs and we'd laugh, and I made faith fun instead of a burden. Faith should not be a burden. Faith should release you from your burdens. And I understood that by then for sure. So we would make up funny songs and put on funny plays, and I would make it fun for them. But by the time they were adults and Cody went off to film school at USC, I felt like I was starting to lose him to the world's culture. I did. But the fascinating thing that happened with Cody, he got his master's degree at Oxford University in film and in it had a very, very lofty name I can hardly remember, but basically it was in screenwriting. He's a brilliant screenwriter and producer, and that's what he does now, has been doing. But his faith became his very own. I didn't want him to follow in mine. I wanted him to discover his own walk with the Lord, not mine. I've got to walk mine. He's got to walk his own. And too often we force these things on our children. You got to, that's the very thing I'm talking about, our culture. And I can't get mad at our culture for doing it to me when I'm guilty of the same thing myself, trying to make my child cookie cutter me. That's wrong. My children have their own dreams, their own aspirations, their own thoughts and feelings. And I'm just there to facilitate them and help them with them. So I always told my kids once they became, adults, they would, I would never force, and I would never even give them an opinion unless they asked for it. And believe me, Cody brought some ladies home that it was all I could do not to give my opinion on it. Frank and I used to look at each other like, oh, but I didn't do it. I said, he's going to realize it. I don't want to push my child away. I want him to always feel safe that he can come to me with anything. I want my children to want me to be in their life. So that's what we have today, thank God, because while he was at Oxford, he discovered the God of C.S. Lewis, the God of Tolkien, and fell in love with his Savior Jesus, Yeshua to me now in Hebrew. He walks his own walk with him now. So I'm just grateful the Lord gave me the wisdom to say, leave them alone. You've done your job. You're only going to make it worse now, And so
I'm talking to Kathie Lee Gifford, her book, The God of the Way, and it's her journey into the stories, people and faith that changed the world forever. And this is, Kathie, as I remember, your second big book on Jewish Christian faith. And she came out, too, with an oratorio, which has the most glorious music.
Oh, honey,
so
thank you.
You've done it all.
It's a full-fledged,
so, Kathie,
it's a full-fledged film, Joan, which I sent you a long time ago before it was even finished because I wanted you to.
Yes, I saw it.
Mm-hmm. It's a full-fledged film. It's available on DVD now. It's the 4 oratorios put together telling the story of creation all the way through God calling a people in the form of Abraham and Sarah, all the way through what I hate to call, but the world knows it as the Old Testament, and into the New Testament, the story of how the Word became flesh and dwelt among us in the form of Yeshua, Jesus. And it ends with a call to the modern-day church, an oratorio called The God of the Other Side. When Jesus said, get in the boat and meet me on the other side, he said it to his disciples. And the other side was not just, the physical other side of the Sea of Galilee. It was a specific place where his very good Jewish boy disciples had been told their whole lives, never go to the other side. It's where all the pagans lived. It's where all the people, all the bestiality was, all the pagan worship, all the idol worship, that world, and that they would be unclean. And in the first century AD Judaism, and they would be shunned completely from community by going there. But Jesus was basically saying, if you're going to follow me, you got to go to the other side where I'm going to go, because that's where the lost are. That's where the broken are. That's where the beaten down, the shunned, the canceled are. And they are desperate to know that I love them. You have to be my hands, my feet, and my mouth. You have to go and love them in my name. And that's the call to the church today, because we've forgotten that. Some churches
Well,
do
I
it
was going to
beautifully.
ask you, I'm talking to Kathie Lee Gifford, whom you know, I can't even tell you for how many years, as a songwriter, a writer, author, singer, actor. We first met Kathie even before this, but she was on with Live with Regis for many, many years, and then worked with Hoda for at least 11 years. Do you, Kathie, you changed your life, you moved to a place where people knew you and you knew them, but it wasn't like home where you had come of age and done so much. And do you ever question faith or what's going on? The world is so complicated, and as you said, not only have religions failed people in so many ways, our political leaders have failed us in so many ways. It's tough.
It's hard. People have lost faith not only in God or any kind of spirituality, but they've lost faith in their institutions. I mean, I don't trust the FBI anymore. Do you?
Well,
I don't trust the CIA anymore. Do you?
Yeah.
And I'm not a Republican. I've been a registered independent since I was 18 years old and first could vote. I said, I don't like either club. I'm not a club joiner. I want to think my own thoughts and come to my own conclusions. And I don't want to be beholden to any group of people. I want to believe what I believe authentically and then live by it. So, yeah, I've lost tremendous faith in our government's gotten way too big. It was never meant to be. I think the Constitution's a magnificent piece of literature. I think the men yes, it was only men in power then, but look how far we've come. I think we've come a long, long way. We fought for civil rights in this country. We fought for women's rights in this country. We fought, the first people that fought the British slave trade was a magnificent member of Parliament, William Wilberforce, who just was a devout Christian. And he said, this is wrong. Slavery is wrong. Anybody that wants to know the story of how the British slave trade came to an end, read a book by my friend Eric Metaxas called Amazing Grace, story of William Wilberforce that Patricia Heating and her husband did a magnificent movie directed by Academy Award nominated director Michael Apted. Directed. I mean, this is the kind of history that's being forgotten. This was a wealthy, privileged, white Christian man who single-handedly stopped the slave trade in the British islands, the British slave trade, years before we had our first abolitionist in America. This is important history for us to know. Nobody can say they love God out of the one side of their mouth and keep slaves on the other. We know innately it's not right. Every single human being is precious and equal in the sight of God, their creator. So, I think there are things we can celebrate as a nation still. We're still trying to make things better. But you know what I'm really for, more than anything in the world?
God.
I'm for term limits, doggone it.
I think a lot of us are with you.
I rarely talk politics with you, but there's just too many people who get too comfortable there and forget why they were supposed to go to there to serve.
And never want to leave. I'm talking to Kathie Lee Gifford, her new book, The God of the Way, and her oratorio too. Kathie is The Way, and it's all available. And congratulations on being a grandmother. I love checking up with you. By the way, your love life is good.
You know what? My personal life, I've learned to keep things that are precious, quiet. Next time you and I get together and have lunch, I'll tell you everything.
I can't wait.
I'm so grateful to have everything in my life is like in harmony now. Yeah, good
I'm
friends.
so glad.
A beautiful a companion in my life who shares my faith and shares my love of music. And I'm not even planning on tomorrow. I'm grateful for what I have today.
That's the way to do it. And enjoy the moment. Seize the day.
Thank you, honey.
Thank
I love you, my
Kathie.
darling friend.
We'll talk very soon.
And everybody listening, God bless you all.
The God of the
Shalom,
Way,
shalom,
Kathie's new
sweet friend.
book. Okay, shalom, Kathie Lee Gifford.